CNBC-TV18 presents the AI Dialogues in association with IBM.
Yogesh, how ready would the bank be?
I think it's an evolving experience. As a bank, we are always striving to meet the requirements. First is of our customers, because they're trusting us with their money, their data, information. So how are we doing that? And then, of course, of the regulators, right? What are the regulatory requirements? And you continuously strive towards, meeting those regulatory environments, and then eventually, exceed those and protect customers even more. So as and when, more and more regulations come in around AI, of course, it's still a journey of deployment also. So not many banks are like.
What is your best guess? You think the banking system will be prepared for it? I think it's going to impact the banks most. Although it's DPDP Act is for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's about being proactive. So at Kotak, we are being very, very proactive about, what's coming ahead, what's currently in, and then investing on those infrastructure, the models that we've been talking about ahead of time, so that we can be exceeding our expectations of regulator as well as our customers.
What is the state of readiness of the sector, even if you just don't want to mention about Yes Bank?
I think the sector started working on this a year back, realized what was happening in Europe because of the GDPR requirements which came in. So it is not that the DPDP guidelines which came in here were a bit of a surprise. We all knew what is coming our way.
250 crore was a surprise.
That was in a way, but it was still better than what's there in GDPR, which is linked to profit and a multiplier of that, which can go into billions of dollars at times. But to answer your question, I think we've all been working towards it. Are we ready? Maybe the answer is no. But definitely we should be ready by the time the act comes into force. And as a first step, will we be completely ready to ensure that all data of a customer is only there in one place and he says, delete my data, I can press a button and delete it? I don't think that's going to happen as a part of the phase one. But I think we've all have been taking care of our data, data which is at rest, data which is in transit, moving to our vendors or otherwise. We've all taken precautions on how to manage it, how to store it safely, what are the kind of security systems we need to build around it, and how do we use it. Usage of the data, I think, is going to be one of the big challenges, because the app that is there on your mobile downloads everything at the back end. The SDK keeps running continuously. There are no restrictions on that. With DPDP coming in, there will be multiple restrictions which will come. So you typically use that data and build a ledger earlier to know how good or bad your customer is. All those restrictions are going to go away. Post that, life is not going to be as easy as it has been for the past few years for the fintechs, which have been using that data exclusively for this purpose. And it's going to be more a challenge for them, because thankfully we are we use dated technology banks. The larger banks like us, we still use paper. And so we have a lot of data which a customer has given himself, consented to give, has signed on that. So I think our challenges will be to digitize that and use it for future purposes.
So is this the place where you can help the bankers?
Absolutely. So I see this in two parts. One, in terms of IBM as an organization, IBM as a service provider. IBM as an organization, I think we have an unfair advantage simply because we're present in other countries, and for standardization, a lot of practices have been imported, and we already do a lot of things, right? But of course, there is that delta. There are things, additional steps that we need to do. We've already studied. We know to a certain extent what we need to do. Of course, we'll have to look at the rules. There are additional things that happen in India, for instance, CSR. We invest quite heavily in terms of education, minors who are involved, right? So the entire consent, how do we really handle? So there are a lot of complex questions that we need to still figure out, and that's really what the government's also struggling with before they can come out with the rules, quite understandably, right? So they're all working through that. Now, coming down to the banks or any client for that matter, and this is really our bread and butter, working with our clients to figure out what their issue is. How can we solve this through technology, right? Really understand, because this can't be done manually. It necessarily needs technology. And I think it's probably a silver lining as well, especially in the context of Gen AI, where we are talking about, right? Because there's no Gen AI without information architecture, right? So I think that's very clear. So in some sense, we're all also saddled with so much of legacy data. So it gives us a good opportunity to clean up data, to really bring this into a proper structure, and really use the data to your advantage, right? So I see this as a fantastic opportunity. From an IBM perspective, of course, we do look at this. We already have a lot of solution in terms of Cloud Pak for data and so on and so forth. Again, as I mentioned earlier. So while we have a lot of these technology, we also bring in consultancy as well to help them actually make this entire journey and
To
really
handhold
help
the
them
banks,
handhold
as it
them
were.
through that.
Okay. I mean, Europe is widely believed to be, almost the gold standard in terms of protecting privacy. So if you all have serviced there, it should be perhaps a cut-paste job in India, you think?
Largely, right? I'm hoping.
Lift and shift is what you say.
But again, you don't want to restrict it so much where it's not really relevant for India. So I think those are the aspects that we need to really figure out that, and probably it's not a restriction, but we'll have to figure out if it really fits in the same manner, or what are the things, how do we have to really adapt for the India market?
Do you suspect, okay, let me ask you, Yogesh, that a lot of financial literacy has to be done?
Yes.
It's not just banks, you all will be the evolved parts of the system, but people may be unwittingly giving away information.
Yeah, I think it's about being very, very transparent with your customers when you are getting their consents, for how long you're getting it for. Is it a one-time data pull or is it like a regular data pull? Depends on the relationship with the customer also, right? And they'll give consent and you should also give them an ingress to they can withdraw consent, right? So they can manage their consents. So it's all about, again, anchoring at customers. Because as a customer myself, I would not like, banks to keep calling me, banks to keep pulling my data, keep pulling my credit, and then just bothering me. But when I want something, right, if I'm interested in buying a home, that is the time I would like banks to reach out and saying, okay, here are the home loans that we could give you, here is the interest rate, here are the other add-ons. So those are going to be very, very important.
So you think that when the privacy rules come in, it won't be that you're going to lose customers because of that, because the upcoming generation seems willing to share.
They are more than willing to share, I guess, what they have. And that can be a challenge. And we are seeing then even sharing of OTPs, for example, right? Which is a huge problem. So it's not just about literacy. Even highly educated people end up sharing their OTPs, and that creates a problem on the other side. Similarly, on the Gen Z, since you raised the topic of Gen Z, now that's one of the risks which is there when you're talking of AI and Gen Z. Not too many people realize that Gen Z wants a use of convenience. They want everything to happen very fast, right? And as I said, we are a highly regulated entity. Now, if I have a coder in my team who's a Gen Z, he expects that I should allow him to use a ChatGPT or any other for coding his thing. As a bank, I can't allow my code to be put into a public domain from where it will be. So now I put restrictions on what he can do. What's the end result? He leaves me and he goes to a software company. But this is the population which is going to be my employees over a period of time. I need to manage that risk and reduce that attrition of the Gen Z and manage their expectation on how they still need to take cognizance of the law and the regulation.
CNBC-TV18 presents the AI Dialogues in association with IBM.